Hey guys, tonight we set sail under a moon so bright it silvers every wave, and drift straight into the strange, salty world of pirates, not for treasure, not for sword fights, but to peek below deck and find out just how these outlaws handled all the bumps, bruises, fevers and oops, I lost a limb, disasters of life at sea. Forget the glossy stories of pirates swashbuckling their way through the Caribbean. This is a tale of midnight surgeries, makeshift bandages, and the kind of creative medicine you really hope you never need in your own life. To be honest, if you ever found yourself on a pirate ship with a toothache or a splintered bone, you probably wouldn't survive this. But hey, at least the view would be nice. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, post your location and your local time. I want to know who else is out there, drifting along with me on these creaky decks and storm-tossed waters. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You trudge down a narrow, creaking passageway below deck, guided only by the wavering glow of a lantern, and the unmistakable scent of old salt sweat, and something that smells suspiciously like last week's stew. The air is thick, every breath tinged with mouldy timber, and a trace of spilled rum. Men snore and mutter in their hammocks, but in a dark corner, there's a huddle of restless bodies, pirates nursing fresh wounds, hacking coughs, and the kinds of bruises that come from falling down a ladder or losing a drinking contest. The sick bay, if you can call it that, is little more than a plank table and a few crates pushed together. Here, wounds are patched, teeth are pulled, and everyone hopes the next wave won't send the patient and the doctor sliding into a stack of rum barrels. Mainstream historical fact: pirate ships had no proper hospitals, and only the luckiest crews sailed with a real surgeon. More often, the task fell to whoever had the least shaky hands and the highest tolerance for blood, bad smells, and frantic improvisation. Historians still argue whether pirates were better or worse off than navy men. Some say pirate care was rough, but quick. Others claim the democratic spirit on board meant you had a better shot at attention, even if it wasn't always good attention. In the flickering lamplight, you spot a battered chest crammed with linen scraps, rusty knives, and a few jars of mystery ointment. The doctor who might have once stitched sails or wrangled livestock leans over a pirate groaning with a nasty gash on his arm. He hums a sea shanty as he works, maybe to calm the patient or just to cover up the curses. A quirky tidbit: pirates were surprisingly inventive, using whatever was on hand to treat wounds, gunpowder to cauterize cuts, rum to numb the pain, and sometimes just a hearty slap on the back followed by, "You'll be fine, mate, walk it off." You hear the tale of Blacktooth Briggs, a pirate infamous not for plundering, but for yanking teeth with his bare hands and offering a sip of rum as a reward. Some nights, the sick bay rings with laughter as the crew shares horror stories of impromptu surgeries and the legendary cure-all, a potion of vinegar, salt water, and whatever herbs they hadn't already smoked. More often, it's the groans and snores of exhausted men hoping they'll live to see another sunrise. Historians still puzzle over just how much pirates relied on official knowledge versus trial and error. Did they really use leeches? Or is that just a story told to scare the new recruits? Did every pirate secretly know how to suture a wound? Or did most just close their eyes and hope for the best? What's certain is that the pirate approach to medicine was as rough and ready as the men themselves. Quick thinking, a strong stomach, and more than a little luck. You curl up in the corner, rocked by the ship's gentle sway, the salty air slowly lulling you into a kind of uneasy peace. Above, the moon glows. Below, a dozen dreams of gold, glory, and healthy limbs flicker in the darkness. The pirate's sickbay is far from perfect, but out here on the endless sea, you realize it's all you've got. Sleep tight, and maybe don't ask what's in the bandages. The lantern's glow flickers as you inch closer to the battered wooden chest that serves as the pirate surgeon's entire pharmacy, supply closet, and toolbox rolled into one. You kneel beside it, feeling the deck's rough planks beneath your knees, and wonder what strange treasures and horrors it holds. Welcome to the world of pirate sawbones, where every tool tells a story, and nothing is ever quite as clean as you'd hope. With a theatrical creak, the chest opens, revealing an assortment of implements that might look more at home in a butcher's shop than a doctor's office. There's a heavy bone saw with notches in the handle, its blade darkened by countless hasty amputations. Next to it, a row of knives, some wickedly sharp, others suspiciously stained, lie jumbled with long crooked needles, rolls of coarse linen, and a handful of rusty forceps. Mainstream historical fact. Pirate doctors used whatever they could get their hands on, often relying on captured or salvaged Navy surgeons' kits, supplemented by trade, looting, or sheer necessity. Few tools were specialized, most doubled as kitchen or carpentry implements on days when no one needed urgent medical care. You run your fingers over a small jar filled with thick, yellowish grease. One pirate claims it's a universal ointment, good for burns, bruises, or if you're desperate, seasoning hardtack.
There's a bottle of cheap rum for numbing pain and spirits in every sense of the word, and a small pouch of dried herbs that smells strongly of rosemary, with a hint of something you can't quite identify, probably because it's gone slightly mouldy in the damp air.
The surgeon's pride, though, is his suture kit, a length of horsehair, a curved needle, and hands steady enough to stitch up a writhing deckhand in the middle of a storm. A battered old book sits at the bottom of the chest, part medical manual, part personal diary, with pages stuck together by salt and time. The doctor flips through it, pausing on a page that's more doodles than instructions. A quirky tidbit, pirate surgeons often wrote down the best cures they learned from other sailors or raided ships, but also added their own notes like try twice as much rum next time, or don't let Jenkins hold the lantern, he faints at blood. Some entries are just cryptic drawings of a man with 3 arms or a chicken on his head, proof that boredom and rum do not a great medical record make. Historians still argue whether pirate surgeons were skilled professionals fallen from grace, or simply desperate souls elected by the crew because they looked like they knew what they were doing. A few were actual physicians who'd lost their license, deserted the Navy, or simply preferred the company of outlaws to that of officers. Most, though, learned by watching, trying, and hoping not to be the reason their crewmate lost an extra finger. The surgeon's chest, in its haphazard glory, is a testament to both the ingenuity and the chaos of medicine at sea. A pirate lumbers in, clutching his hand, and cursing colourfully about a fishhook. The doctor selects a pair of rusty forceps, gives them a quick wipe on his sleeve, and tells the patient to bite down on a chunk of wood. "This'll sting, mate, but you'll be back to playing cards in no time." You wince as the hook is pried free, the wound splashed with rum, and the whole mess wrapped up with a strip of rag that might once have been part of someone's shirt, or possibly a flack. Quirky tidbit. Pirates sometimes used whatever fabric was cleanest, or at least least filthy, for bandages. Old sails, spare shirts, and on one memorable occasion, the captain's best scarf, which led to a week of suspiciously silent dinners, until it was replaced. The crew swears by the healing power of pirate patchwork, and by the belief that a good story is worth a little pain. Historians still debate whether the improvisation in pirate medicine saved more lives than it. Did the absence of rigid hierarchy let pirates adapt faster? Or did it mean every surgery was a gamble? In the cramped, rocking world below deck, you realize that a chest full of mismatched tools and a surgeon with a steady hand and a crooked smile was the closest thing most pirates had to hope. You settle back, listening to the surgeon hum a familiar shanty as he cleans his tools. Above, the ship groans in the swell. Below, the pirate chest stands ready, equal parts miracle and menace, waiting for whatever trouble the next day might bring. The night thickens, and the lantern flickers,
casting shadows that dance across the blood-stained planks of the makeshift sickbay.
As you settle in, you can't help but notice the huddle of anxious pirates glancing nervously at a broad-shouldered man in a tattered coat, the doctor who is quietly laying out his saws, knives, and a battered bottle of rum. You realise with a chill that tonight someone will lose a limb, and you're about to witness the drama of an amputation by lantern light. A hush falls as the patient is carried in, groaning, pale, and clutching a shattered leg courtesy of a falling cannon or a misjudged leap during a skirmish. There's a strong smell of salt, sweat, and something less pleasant, fear. Mainstream historical fact: amputations were shockingly common at sea, especially for pirates who faced splintering wood, cannonballs, and blades on a daily basis. With infection almost guaranteed if a wound festered, the best hope for survival was to cut off the damaged limb before the rot set in. The operation was brutal, the recovery uncertain, but for many it was the only chance to avoid a much slower, more agonizing death. The doctor works quickly, a cloth tied around his mouth, and a belt handed to the patient to bite. Someone steadies a lantern, its yellow glow the only witness besides the tightly packed onlookers. The pirate surgeon splashes rum on the sore, the wound, and for good measure, into his own mouth. "This'll burn," he mutters, which is probably the understatement of the century. With a deep breath, he begins sawing through flesh and bone, sweat streaming, hands as steady as the rolling deck allows. Jokes fly, morbid, perhaps, but necessary. "At least you'll save on boots, mate," one pirate quips, and nervous laughter skitters around the room. Their anesthesia is the rum, plus a few strong arms holding the patient down. There are no fancy sedatives here, just grit, pain, and a desperate hope to wake up in the morning. A quirky tidbit: on some ships, the unlucky patient who lost a limb got first pick of the next day's rum ration, and sometimes even a golden prosthetic, usually a wooden leg. But if the crew was feeling flush or particularly guilty, it might be painted and decorated in true pirate style. Pirates took a strange pride in their wounds. Peg legs, hook hands, and gnarly scars were marks of both survival and status. If nothing else, they made for the best tales in port. Historians still argue whether the grisly efficiency of pirate amputations made them more or less dangerous than their navy counterparts. Some accounts say pirate crews worked together with shocking speed and even surprising gentleness, since every hand was precious and everyone knew it could be them next. Others point out that infection rates were astronomical, and a successful amputation was still a gamble with death. It didn't help that antiseptics were usually just strong liquor and a hurried prayer. The operation ends with a final bone-rattling twist of the saw, and a silence falls. The surgeon presses hot tar, rum, or, if very lucky, a heated iron to the stump to cauterize the wound, hoping to stave off infection and end the bleeding. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes the deck was a little quieter the next morning. The wounded man, sweating and groaning, is carried away to rest, swaddled in whatever clean cloth the crew can find. He's a survivor, at least for tonight. The ship rocks gently as the doctor wipes his brow and downs what's left in the bottle. Jokes start up again, and someone sings a bawdy tune about old Pegleg Pete, reminding everyone that life goes on, even if you're short a limb. Morbid humour is the pirate's best defence against despair, and everyone knows the value of a laugh, even if it's only to keep from crying. Historians still puzzle over how much pirate amputations differed from those on merchant or naval ships. Was the pirate's sense of equality, every man risking the same dangers, an advantage when it came to trust and care? Or did the lack of formal training do more than a few unlucky souls? The debate rages like a storm at sea, but one thing is certain: on a pirate ship, if you had to lose a limb, You'd want a surgeon who could hold his rum, keep a steady hand, and crack a joke even as he soared. As you drift to sleep to the sound of creaking timbers and distant haunted laughter, you realise just how fragile life is on these waters. Every scar, every peg leg is a badge of a brutal, half-wild world, one where medicine is survival, and every sunrise is a miracle. The deck tilts, and the air grows heavy with the mingled scents of salt, rum, sweat, and the sharp tang of unfamiliar herbs. You find yourself squeezed into a corner of the galley as the doctor rummages through battered jars and stained sack. Tonight, you're about to sample the strange and storied world of pirate remedies, some drawn from ancient books, others invented in desperation, and all served with a generous splash of whatever alcohol is handy. You watch as a groggy pirate, nursing a nasty scrape, is handed a cup of steaming, cloudy liquid. He wrinkles his nose and swallows bravely. If it tastes that bad, it must be good for you, he groans, then promptly belches. Mainstream historical fact. With no pharmacies, few reliable medicines, and little real knowledge of germs, pirate medicine depended on whatever was on hand. Barrels of rum, roots yanked from tropical islands, jars of pungent ointments, and plenty of old wives' tales. Rum wasn't just for drinking, it was an all-purpose antiseptic, anesthetic, disinfectant, and mood lifter. Pirates rubbed it into wounds, soaked bandages, gargled it for sore throats, and even brushed their teeth with it if they felt fancy. The doctor passes you a jar of greenish goop, claiming it's made from mashed garlic, onion, and a handful of mysterious island leaves. If you ask what's in it, he just winks and says, "It'll put hair on your chest, or at least kill the fleas." A quirky tidbit, pirates developed a notorious reputation for creative cures, like chewing tobacco, mixed with honey for coughs, slapping crab shells on stings, or even wearing a bit of dried shark skin for protection against evil spirits, and unlucky dice rolls. Some tricks worked by sheer luck, others, well, made for colourful stories. In a dark corner, another pirate sits with his leg propped up, a bandage wrapped in so many layers it looks more like a mummy's arm than a healing wound. The doctor pours a measure of rum directly over the cloth, nodding sagely as the patient howls. "That's how you know it's working," the doctor insists, though the rest of the crew isn't so sure. Meanwhile, the grizzled cook shares his own recipe for pirate penicillin, a mouldy biscuit dunked in vinegar and tucked into a wound to draw out the bad humours. Historians still argue whether any of these remedies helped, or if the only real cure was a hearty immune system and a very high pain tolerance. You learn that pirates borrowed cures from everywhere. A West African crewman swears by ginger tea for stomach aches. A runaway from the Spanish Main shares secrets of aloe and chili peppers for fevers and chills. Every new landfall means a new herb, root, or mysterious powder, and the doctor keeps a secret stash of the oddest treasures, dried seaweed, preserved starfish, even the occasional frog, alive or dead, depending on the superstition of the day. The galley is full of noise, jokes, and wild theories about what works best. If it keeps the captain's beard from falling out, it's worth a try, one pirate shouts, waving a clump of dried limes. Another claims he once cured a fever by dancing around the mast, naked at midnight, though the others insist he just wanted an excuse to show off his tattoo. Historians still puzzle over the real effect of pirate remedies. Did the constant swapping of ideas mean pirates were more likely to stumble onto something that worked? Or did their lack of discipline doom them to repeat the same mistakes? Was rum truly the miracle medicine, or just a way to forget how little else they had? The answers are as slippery as a wet deck in a storm, but the legends endure. The doctor finally settles down with a mug of rum, his hand stained with garlic and the odd fleck of dried blood. He offers you a taste of his latest invention, a brew so strong your eyes water and your toes tingle. You sip, cough, and laugh with the rest. On a pirate ship, Survival is a group project. Medicine is equal parts hope and habit, and the difference between remedy and ritual is sometimes just the toss of a coin. As the candles burn low, you listen to the ship creak and the crew's laughter echo across the waves. Somewhere in the dark, someone stirs a pot of healing soup, while another pirate swears he's never felt better in his life, even if it's mostly the rum talk. The air below deck is thick and warm, swirling with the smell of sweat, musty wood, and that stubborn tang of rum that never quite leaves a pirate ship. Tonight, the laughter is muted, the hammocks hang heavier, and the groans carry a deeper note. The sick list is long, and the crew is under siege from invisible foes far worse than any navy. Scurvy fever, and the slow, relentless march of illness that shadows every voyage. You weave among the hammocks, noting the sallow faces and trembling hands of pirates curled up with chills. Some cough with a hacking, hollow sound. Others simply lie still, lips cracked, their eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. Mainstream historical fact. Scurvy, caused by a lack of fresh fruits and vegetables, and the resulting vitamin C deficiency, was the great terror of seafarers. Pirates, navy crews, and explorers alike feared its signature signs: bleeding gums, loose teeth, festering sores, and in the end, weakness so profound you could barely raise a tankard, let alone a cutlass. The doctor inspects a row of sick pirates, prodding swollen limbs and sniffing at wounds with a mixture of curiosity and concern. He prescribes his usual cure, a healthy dose of rum, a chunk of old lime if you're lucky, and a prayer to Neptune or any other sea god. Sometimes he tries dried citrus peel, if there's any left, or whatever green thing can be scavenged from a passing island. Quirky tidbit. Pirate ships, when they could, stocked up on limes, oranges, or tamarinds in tropical ports. Not for taste, but to ward off scurvy and keep their crew on their feet. That's where the nickname Limey comes from, though pirates preferred the term lucky.
Fever is a constant enemy. The heat and humidity below deck create a perfect breeding ground for all manner of illness. Mosquitoes swarm the ship when it's anchored in tropical waters, and the result is a roulette wheel of chills, sweats, and delirium.
Pirates fight back with every remedy they know. Herbal teas, cold compresses, and when things get desperate, a dunk in seawater to scare the fever out, or perhaps just shock it into submission. The doctor frowns over his patient, waving away flies and muttering that, at least when you're this sweaty, the lice can't hold on. Historians still argue whether pirates had better or worse odds than their navy counterparts when it came to epidemics.
Some say their greater freedom to rest, eat what they could find, or recover without strict discipline gave them a fighting chance. Others insist that without organised care or a real supply of medicine, pirates were simply luckier if they survived.
There are tales of entire crews struck down by yellow fever or the bloody flux, dysentery, leaving ships adrift or easy prey for enemies.
Still, some pirates showed an uncanny knack for survival, crediting it to their rough and ready diets, and even rougher sense of humour. You hear the muttered curses and half-sung prayers as pirates fight through the worst of it. A few lucky souls recover, bolstered by care from their mates, a shared ration of precious fruit, an extra blanket, or simply a string of bad jokes to keep the fear at bay. The unlucky ones slip quietly away, buried at sea with a brief ceremony, a splash of rum, and sometimes a last defiant cheer. Quirky tidbit: the pirate's sick list was a real thing, though more often a piece of paper or a tally scratched into a beam. Crew members would sometimes fake illness to avoid dangerous tasks, though the doctor could usually spot a malingering pirate by the way he snored louder as soon as the deck swabbers passed by. "He'll live," the surgeon would say with a wink, but the laundry won't. Historians still puzzle over how much pirate medicine was guesswork and how much was real science, pieced together from old wives' tales. stolen ship manuals, and hard-won experience. Pirates made do with what they had. Line when they could get it, rum always, and faith in each other's stubbornness to see them through. You linger by a hammock where a young pirate, cheeks flushed with fever, clings to a lucky charm, a scrap of ribbon, a carved bone, a shell from a distant shore. His shipmates gather near, swapping tales of other voyages, other storms, other battles with illness. In the end, it's the hope of another sunrise, another port, and another raucous night of laughter that carries them through the darkest hours. You stagger up to the main deck, blinking in the harsh sunlight, the ship rocking gently beneath your feet. For a moment, the salt breeze almost makes you forget the chaos below.
Lim, you spot the doctor, or as some might say, the least unlucky volunteer, scrubbing a bloody sore in a bucket, and arguing with the quartermaster about whose job it actually is to take out the medical trash. Welcome to the strange reality of pirate medicine, where the title of doctor could mean anything by trained surgeon to handy deckhand who didn't flinch at the sight of blood.
The crew is a patchwork bunch, a former barber from Bristol, a runaway apprentice who once swept out an apothecary, a quick-witted Jamaican sailor claims to have learned bone setting from his grandmother. On some ships, the doctor was a real physician, perhaps pressed into piracy after a failed business, a scandal, or a taste for adventure. On others, the role fell to whoever could stitch a wound, set a bone, or fake enough confidence to keep panic at bay. Mainstream historical fact. Pirates didn't always have the luxury of a trained surgeon. In fact, many pirate doctors were nothing more than resourceful amateurs, learning as they went, and hoping that skill, luck, and a lot of rum would get them through. You watch as a toothless old pirate with a crooked grin offers his services as assistant. I'll hold him still, but don't ask me to look. The crew jokes that the doctor's best tool is his bedside manner, which mostly involves threats, bribes, and the promise of a share in the next treasure. Historians still argue whether pirates with a real surgeon aboard fared much better than those who relied on deckhands. Some say any training was better than none. Others insist that pirate democracy meant the crew had a say in their treatment. And a wise doctor knew when to listen. A pirate limps up, his arm wrapped in linen, and asks if he'll keep his hand. The doctor prods, pokes, and finally shrugs. If it's still attached after rum and a good night's sleep, you're ahead of most.
In one corner, a former Navy surgeon, so he claims, shares horror stories of Navy discipline. The captain would rather lose a dozen men than delay the chase. Here, the pirates laugh and clink tin cups, proud that, on their ship, a wounded man might get a vote on his own treatment.
Quirky tidbit, some pirate crews would elect their doctor, choosing the crewmate with the steadiest hands or the most creative swearing. If you performed a miracle saving a leg, patching a gut, or just calming a terrified shipmate, you might find yourself promoted overnight. If you botched a job, however, you'd better hope your next patient was more forgiving than the last. The doctor's kit is as varied as the backgrounds of those who use it. A saw bought in a Havana market, a set of tweezers stolen from a royal surgeon, a bottle of magic water from a priestess in Port Royal, and always, always a flask of rum. There are stories too about pirates who relied on spells or charms, calling on luck, the saints or the sea gods for help. The doctor grins as he tucks a lucky coin into his pocket before pulling out a splinter. You can never be too careful, mate.
Historians still puzzle over the boundaries between medicine and magic on a pirate ship. Was every healer a little bit of both? Did desperate times call for desperate and sometimes downright strange measures?
The debate drifts on the breeze, unresolved as the ship's own next destination. A young apprentice asks the doctor how he learned to sew a wound so neatly. The answer? Practice patience and not being afraid to get yelled at by men twice your size. In the end, medicine at sea is a blend of nerve, invention, and the knowledge that tomorrow It might be your own arm on the chopping block. You linger at the rail as the sun sinks, watching the doctor stow his tools and swap a joke with the quartermaster. On this ship, skill is respected, but luck is cherished, and a steady hand is worth more than gold. You realise that, whatever their title, the ship's healers are just as vital as the ones steering the course, keeping the crew afloat on luck, laughter, and the hope that no one else needs stitching up tonight. A sudden cry breaks the lull of evening, and the deck explodes into chaos. Cannons thunder, splinters fly, and pirates rush to their stations, muskets primed and cutlasses drawn. The air thickens with gunpowder and panic. You duck behind a barrel, peering through smoke as battle erupts, and in the midst of the storm, the ship's makeshift medical team scrambles into action. Tonight, you witness pirate medicine in the heat of battle, where wounds arrive faster than they can be counted, and survival is a matter of speed, nerve, and just a little luck. As the clash rages, you see men fall, some with shallow cuts, others with bloody, jagged wounds from cannon shot or flying debris. The doctor, no stranger to bedlam, yells for helpers and clears a patch of deck as an emergency surgery site. Mainstream historical fact. On pirate ships, the aftermath of a skirmish was a medical nightmare. Bullets, blades, and splinters meant that many injuries needed immediate attention, and pirates had to treat wounds quickly before infection set in, or blood loss claimed another crewmate. A groaning deckhand is hauled over, his shoulder bleeding freely. The doctor grabs a handful of rags, slaps them onto the wound, and barks at two pirates to hold the patient down. He works with grim focus, cleaning, binding, and when he has no other option, using a hot iron to cauterize the worst of the damage.
Rum is splashed liberally, sometimes as an antiseptic, sometimes just to calm shaking nerves. Don't worry, mate, if it burns, it's working. One helper laughs, earning a weak grin from the patient and a not-so-weak punch from his mate. Quirky tidbit, it wasn't just the doctor who patched wounds.
During battle, anyone with two good hands might find themselves holding a compress, stitching a wound, or fashioning a sling from an old shirt. Pirates took pride in being able to patch a mate, even if they couldn't read or write. The crew might tease each other, but in a pinch, most pirates would risk their lives to drag a friend out of danger and slap on a bandage, no questions asked. As the smoke clears, the wounded are sorted, some to hammocks to rest, others to the operating table for more serious intervention. You watch as bullets are dug out with forceps, broken bones are set, and splintered with whatever wood is at hand, and ragged wounds are sewn with coarse horsehair thread. Sometimes, a pirate regains consciousness just long enough to ask if his share of the loot is safe. Priorities, after all, never change. Don't worry, the doctor assures him with a wink. If you die, I'll spend it for you. Historians still argue whether the chaos of pirate medicine in battle saved lives or simply delayed the inevitable. Some records hint that the lack of hierarchy helped anyone could help, and no one was too proud to accept it. Others claim the confusion and lack of supplies meant the wounded often fared no better than if they'd stayed on the enemy's deck. In the fog of war, it's hard to say where competence ended and luck began. A veteran pirate with a half-healed scar offers advice. If you want to survive, keep your head down, your friends close, and never trust a surgeon with clean boots. There's truth in the joke. On a pirate ship, experience and improvisation trumped training every time. Quirky tidbit, some pirates made their own battle charms, bits of bone, shark teeth, or even musket balls from previous fights, worn around the neck or sewn into hats as good luck tokens. They believed these charms kept death at bay, or at least gave them something to blame when things went sideways. As the night returns to uneasy quiet, you help the doctor wash his hands in a bucket of seawater, then collapse onto a coil of rope. The groans of the wounded mingle with laughter, and tired curses, and somewhere someone starts humming a tune about living to fight another day on a pirate ship. Every battle is survived, as a team, even if the medical care is as rough as the sea itself. The battle's thunder fades to a soft, uneasy lull, and you watch the wounded settle in for a night of uneasy sleep, each wrapped in makeshift bandages, and the hope that tomorrow the pain will ease. The doctor pads softly through the rows of hammocks, checking wounds and adjusting splints. But the work doesn't end with battle scars. Out here, even the smallest scrape can turn nasty, and pirates rely on a creative arsenal: stitches, slings, and bandages woven from whatever the sea hasn't ruined. You settle on a barrel, watching as a deckhand, his arm in a sling, regales a circle of shipmates with the story of how he fought off 3 Marines with nothing but a spoon and some seaweed. There's laughter, but also an undercurrent of worry. Everyone knows a wound at sea is never just a wound. Mainstream historical fact. Pirates invented their own methods for tending injuries, making do with cloth torn from shirts, sail patches, and even strips of seaweed, which they believed had healing properties thanks to the salty brine and cooling touch. The doctor pulls a needle and thread from his pouch, coarse horsehair or, if lucky, silk looted from a merchant. He carefully stitches a jagged cut on a sailor's calf, the patient biting a leather strap and humming a shanty through clenched teeth. There's little finesse but much determination, speed and a steady hand count for more than beauty. Jokes ripple through the group. You'll have a scar to impress in every port, and at least the sharks won't bother with you now. You're too tough to chew. Quirky tidbit: some pirates swore by mermaid bandages, a patch of seaweed, layered between strips of linen, tied off with a lucky knot. Whether it helped or not, it gave the wounded something to believe in, and that was often as powerful as any medicine. In a pinch, pirates used anything they could grab: old rope, bits of sail, even waxed parchment to hold a wound together or keep a splint in place. A toothless cook shares her secret for preventing infection: soak everything in rum or vinegar, and if it doesn't sting, you're doing it wrong. Pirates made slings from scarves, cradled broken arms in netting, and splinted fingers with the splinters of the very ship they sailed.
Ingenuity was survival, and even the wildest trick was worth a try, if it meant another day above deck.
Historians still debate the effectiveness of pirate first aid. Did these rough remedies save lives? Or did they just keep hope afloat until the next port? Was there any real science behind seaweed bandages, or were pirates simply lucky enough to outlast infection now and then? The evidence is as murky as the bilge water sloshing underfoot. You watch the doctor wrap a bruised ankle in a length of blue cloth. No 2 bandages on this ship look alike. Some are bright, some patched, some borrowed from the captain's wardrobe. There's pride in the patchwork. If you can't heal it, at least make it look good, the doctor laughs, giving his patient's new sling an approving nod. Quirky tidbit: on some ships, pirates decorated their bandages with lucky charms, small shells or coloured thread, believing a little extra flair brought a lot of extra luck. Some wounds, though, needed more than a fancy knot. Splints fashioned from driftwood, ribs bound tight with sailcloth, and, in the worst cases, a long night spent hoping fever wouldn't set in. As dawn creeps in, the wounded drift in and out of restless sleep, tended by friends with rough hands and rougher jokes. The doctor snatches a few minutes of rest, feet up on a crate, always ready for the next cry of doc. On a pirate ship, the tools are crude, the supplies are few, and the medicine is as much belief as it is skill. But with each stitch and every sling, a little more hope is patched into the battered crew. Morning breaks, slow and heavy, over the battered ship. A salty haze hangs in the air, sunlight creeping through ragged sails, and painting the deck with stripes of gold and shadow.
You hear quiet groans and the soft rustle of men turning in their hammocks, some haunted by nightmares of cannon fire, others just dreading the pain that daylight brings.
Today, the topic is as grim as it gets: gut wounds and the pirate mantra, No guts, no glory, uttered as half joke, half desperate hope. You crouch beside a pirate, curled tight on the deck, a blood-stained bandage pressed to his belly. The doctor inspects the wound, an ugly slash, maybe from a cutlass or a jagged splinter. Mainstream historical fact: abdominal wounds were usually fatal at sea, especially before the invention of proper anesthesia and antiseptics. Pirates knew the odds. If your inside spilled out, your chances were slim. Still, the crew always tried packing wounds with clean linen, mixing herbal poultices, or attempting makeshift stitches, even as they muttered a prayer to Saint Elmo or Neptune. The doctor leans close, breath held, as he gently cleans the wound. "If you can laugh, you'll live," he says, waggling his eyebrows for effect. Someone tries a joke about the cook stew being more deadly than Spanish steel.
Laughter, ragged but real, ripples through the group. Quirky tidbit: pirates sometimes carried lucky charms specifically for their guts. A silver coin sewn into their sash, a scrap of red cloth, or even a dried sea bean, all meant to keep a blade from finding home. A few swore by a shot of rum, claiming it sealed the wound from the inside. It didn't, but it did make the last hours a little warmer.
There's no time for fancy techniques. The doctor does what he can, using thread and a trembling hand, dousing everything in rum, and praying that tomorrow the wound will look a little less angry. Historians still argue whether pirates learnt anything from local healers, or just invented their own rules. Some say pirate medicine was a patchwork of Spanish, African, indigenous, and Old World folk cures, stitched together from every port and every captured ship. Others insist that most pirates simply hoped, and luck decided the rest. You hear stories of men who survived the impossible. There's One-Eyed O'Malley, who supposedly sailed for a month with a musket ball lodged in his gut, and Black Sam, who claimed a mermaid healed his wound, though some say he just passed out for a week and woke up miraculously better. These tales fuel hope among the wounded, even if most know the odds are long. Sometimes the very act of trying, of refusing to give up, buys a little more time. Quirky tidbit: if a pirate did survive a gut wound, he became a living legend, promoted to a spot at the captain's table, allowed to skip the worst chores, and given a nickname that would last a lifetime. Iron Guts, Lucky Tom, or the Invincible, to name a few. Pirate humour had no limits. One old-timer, missing half his stomach, was said to eat double rations, just to fill the hole. Historians still puzzle over just how often these miracles happened. Did pirate resilience stem from sheer stubbornness, or was there something to the wild remedies, the rough camaraderie, and the belief that a lucky charm could tip the scales? In the end, the stories outlive the facts, retold in every smoky tavern and wine-swept dockside. For centuries, as the sun climbs higher, you help fetch water for the wounded, comforted by the laughter and the tall tales, the stubborn refusal to let fear win. Even the worst wounds find some measure of healing in the community of the crew, their jokes, their hope, and their relentless will to live another day. You step into the shadowy corner of the galley, drawn by a sound that sends shivers down your spine, an off-key sea shanty, muffled by the pained groans of a pirate clutching his jaw. The doctor stands ready, sleeves rolled, brandishing a pair of iron pliers and a bottle of rum. Tonight, you're in for one of the true nightmares of pirate life: dental disasters, the agony of toothaches, and the unsung heroism it took to flash a half-toothed pirate. The patient, a burly man with arms like rope coils, has been brought low by a throbbing molar. His shipmates gather round, eager for the show but secretly relieved it isn't their turn. In the chair. Mainstream historical fact: dental problems plagued seafarers. Poor diet, hard tack, and the lack of fresh fruit led to rotten teeth, abscesses, and constant pain. Pirates faced this with a mix of bravado and desperation, since there was no escape from a toothache in the middle of the sea. The doctor pours rum over the pliers, then into the patient's mouth. For courage, he winks. 2 pirates hold the patient steady, one at the shoulders, one gripping his legs. The rest offer bad jokes. If the tooth comes out clean, we'll bury it with honours. Or if you scream loud enough, you'll scare away the rats. The doctor braces the pirate's head, grips the offending tooth, and pulls. The patient's yell is swallowed by the crash of waves. But soon enough, the tooth comes free, bloody, battered, and greeted with raucous cheers. Quirky tidbit: tooth extractions became a kind of entertainment. Crewmen would bet on how long it would take, or whether the patient would faint before the tooth came out. Sometimes, pirates kept the extracted teeth as lucky charms, or strung them onto necklaces as grim reminders of the sea's toll. Some old-timers even made their own dentures from carved bone or ivory, a smile guaranteed to frighten the bravest enemy. After the ordeal, the doctor soaks a rag in rum and stuffs it in the bleeding gap, cautioning the patient not to bite down on anything harder than soggy bread. The rest of the crew swap stories about their own dental woes, with every pirate eager to show off a missing tooth or a wild story. The cook brags about cracking a molar on a pearl in a stolen oyster worth it for a pearl and a week off kitchen duty. Historians still argue whether pirates really suffered more than ordinary sailors, or if their legendary resilience just made the stories more colourful. Some say the rough diet and hard living made for mouths full of trouble. Others point out that pirates had more access to tropical fruit and local remedies than many navy men. Still, the lack of regular care and the brutality of sea life meant toothache was a common, constant threat. You watch the doctor tie off his tools in a scrap of cloth, wiping sweat from his brow. The patient slumps back, pale but smiling, clutching his prized tooth as if it were gold. There's a sense of relief, even triumph. Another enemy bested. Another story to tell. Quirky tidbit: superstitions ran deep. Some pirates believed a lost tooth needed to be thrown into the sea, or else the spirit of the tooth would haunt them, causing even worse pain. Others offered the tooth to the ship's rats, hoping to bargain for good luck. If all else failed, a mouthful of rum and a bellyful of laughter eased the pain, at least until the next meal. As the candle burns low, you hear a final round of jokes about pirate grins and gums tougher than barnacles. The laughter rolls through the ship, mingling with the sound of the waves. In the world of pirates, even dental nightmares become part of the great strange adventure, each gap-toothed smile a medal of survival. Daylight finds you clinging to the rail, the world blurred by heat and the lazy drone of insects circling the ship's stagnant water barrels. The pirates move slow, sweating through shirts patched with salt, scratching bites and muttering about swampy airs. The real enemy today isn't cannonballs or cutlasses, but malaria, fever, and the endless attack of mosquitoes that seem to prefer pirate blood above all else. Welcome to the tropics, where medicine is a mix of wild guesses, jungle lore, and the stubborn hope that you'll still be standing by sundown. The doctor lumbers up from below, swatting at a cloud of gnats. He waves a bundle of smouldering herbs and splashes his arms with a reeking mixture of vinegar and rum, his own homemade bug repellent. Mainstream historical fact: malaria and other mosquito-borne fevers, yellowjack, dengue, break-bone fever were rampant among pirates sailing tropical waters. The lack of knowledge about the true cause meant every remedy was experimental, and every bite was a gamble with fate. You watch as a sailor, teeth chattering despite the midday sun, is led to the shade. The doctor orders cold rags, a draught of ginger tea, and a dose of whatever fever medicine he's got left. Often just willow bark boiled in rum or water. Sometimes a handful of bitter quinine if a ship's lucky enough to have plundered a European apothecary. Quirky tidbit, some pirates swore by jungle remedies, learned from local healers, chewing cinchona bark, mixing mashed papaya seeds, or rubbing green coconut oil on swollen joints. Others believed in the magical powers of swamp coins, bits of silver, hammered flat and sewn into hats, said to deflect illness. A group of pirates takes turns standing watch over the sick, keeping flies at bay and joking that the fever will break if you can make the patient laugh hard enough. The doctor leads the crew in a rowdy chant, hoping noise and song will scare off evil spirits, or at least drown out the groans. Historians still argue whether pirates' willingness to try anything, from local cures to lucky tattoos, gave them a survival edge, or just left them with extra bug bites and a good story for the next tavern. The worst cases, when fever turns to delirium, get special treatment. The doctor ties charms to the hammocks and sprinkles salt on the deck, muttering a half-remembered prayer. Some pirates swear that a lucky lime wedge tucked under the tongue can bring the fever down. Others dangle amulets carved from shark teeth to keep the devils out. You pitch in with the care, wringing out rags and watching the sick through feverish nights. There's a camaraderie here, even as the stakes feel higher with every shiver. Pirates pass the time with tall tales. One insists he was cured by a talking parrot. Another claims he saw a ghostly nursemaid when his fever finally broke. Quirky tidbit, pirates sometimes kept mosquito pets. Tiny jars with live bugs they claimed would lure away the worst biters. It sounds crazy, but on a ship where hope is as important as medicine, no idea is too strange to try. Historians still puzzle over how many pirates survived by luck, how many by real science, and how many simply faded away in the heat. What's certain is that pirates faced more than enemy ships. They fought invisible wars against the fevers of the tropics, armed with stubborn willpower, scraps of knowledge, and a lot of rum. By nightfall, the air cools. The worst of the fever breaks for some, and laughter bubbles up from the hammocks. The doctor soaks his feet in a barrel, grinning at his latest cure. Stay drunk, stay lucky, and keep moving. On a pirate ship, every day free of fever is a victory, celebrated with music, hope, and whatever's left in the medicine chest. The sun dips low as the crew gathers on deck. A patchwork of survivors, some limping, some swaddled in bandages, all bearing the marks of too many battles, storms, and sickbeds. You watch as men help each other tie slings, adjust splints, or prop up mates, still woozy from fever. On a pirate ship, no one escapes injury for long. Yet, in this floating, ragged democracy, wounded pirates often find a second life, not as cast-offs, but as veterans, advisors, and sometimes even legends in their own right. A wiry old sailor named Peg-Leg Pete thumps across the deck, his wooden limb tapping a steady rhythm. He's in charge of keeping lookout tonight, and he takes a certain pride in being the best-eyed pirate with the fewest toes in the Caribbean. Mainstream historical fact. Unlike many navies or merchant crews, pirate ships were surprisingly practical when it came to recovery and disability. As long as you could pull your weight, be it with one hand, one leg, or half your teeth, you stayed part of the crew. In fact, wounded pirates often got compensation from the common chest, a payout agreed upon in the pirate code. You help a one-armed pirate load cargo, watching as he deftly ties knots with his teeth and a single hand. He jokes about being twice as clever with half the limbs, earning a roar of laughter. There's no pity here, only rough camaraderie. Historians still argue whether this pirate pragmatism stemmed from necessity or real democracy. Some say it was simply economics. Every hand, literal or not, was needed at sea. Others claim it grew from pirate ideals of fairness and shared risk, where the wounded were proof of the ship's shared hardships. Quirky tidbit. Pirates had their own crude physical therapy routines. Those who lost a leg learned to row with a strap, while others carved custom handles for tools or weapons. Some invented wild contraptions, wooden hooks that doubled as mug holders, slings rigged for wrestling matches, or even prosthetic hands carved with good luck runes. The rough and ready ingenuity kept everyone busy and kept spirits high. You notice that some wounds leave deeper marks. A young pirate, face scarred by a flying splinter, spends his days playing music for the crew. His mates claim his flute heals faster than any doctor, and his new role brings him honour and gratitude. Others help in the galley, serve as quartermaster's assistants, or tell stories to pass the time on long nights. There's a unique respect given to those who've suffered and returned. The bravest are held up as symbols of luck, stubbornness, or even supernatural favour. You want advice on the next raid? A newcomer is told. Ask old Iron Arm Jack. He's got more lives than a cat, and more scars than a map. Historians still debate how far this acceptance really went. Did pirates welcome all the wounded, or only the useful? Was there true equality, or just a clever way to keep everyone invested in the ship's success? The records suggest a bit of both, a system both hard-edged and unexpectedly generous, shaped by the wild risks of the sea. Quirky tidbit, some pirates hosted competitions for the best disability story, who lost the most toes, who could hold their rum despite missing half a tongue, or who had the wildest tale of survival. The winner earned first pick of the evening's rations and bragging rights until the next storm. As the stars rise, you find yourself surrounded by survivors who refuse to be defined by what they've lost. Instead, they reinvent themselves, trading pain for pride, hardship for new purpose, and wounds for wisdom.
On a pirate ship, recovery isn't just possible, it's an art form, and every scar is another line in the ship's living legend. The moon hangs high, and the ship sways in a gentle rhythm, but rest comes slowly to the crew. Some pirates roll in their hammocks, others mutter in uneasy sleep, a few sit awake staring out at endless dark waves. You sense a tension on board, something the doctor can't suture and rum can't cure, the wounds left behind in the mind.
Madness, melancholy, and the ghosts of old battles drift through the night air like a cold mist. Tonight, you slip quietly into the most mysterious territory of pirate medicine, caring for the troubled mind. You settle near a grizzled veteran rocking on the deck, mumbling sea shanties to himself, eyes glazed and distant. Mainstream historical fact, pirate ships were breeding grounds for trauma. The violence of battle, the isolation of the sea, and the constant threat of betrayal took their toll. While pirates developed a rough code for physical injury, mental wounds were harder to name and treat, and often they lingered long after bones had healed. The doctor offers no potions or surgery for sleepless nights and haunted dreams. Instead, you see pirates gathering in quiet circles, telling stories by lantern light, sharing jokes and memories of lost friends. Laughter becomes a medicine of its own, a way to banish the creeping fear. Quirky tidbit, many pirates believed that the sea itself could steal your wits. Some tied tokens in their hair shells, beads, knotted string to keep bad spirits at bay. The most superstitious refused to sleep alone, fearing that the ghosts of those lost overboard might whisper them mad. You listen as the crew swaps ghost stories. Some claim to have seen phantom ships trailing behind them. Others speak of voices on the wind. One old-timer swears his wooden leg raps on the deck by itself when danger approaches. A gift from the spirits, he says with a crooked smile. These tales frighten and comfort in equal measure, turning fear into something shared rather than faced alone. Historians still argue whether pirate life created more madness, or simply drew those already touched by it. Did the wild freedom and chaos offer refuge for the outcast and the eccentric, or did the relentless stress break the toughest minds? Some records tell of pirates who jumped overboard chasing mermaids, others who simply faded into silence, lost to memory. You notice the small rituals used to soothe troubled shipmates, a favourite song hummed by a friend, a piece of home carried in a pouch, the steady presence of a pet parrot or rat. The doctor sometimes prescribes a strong drink and a good long nap, but the real healing comes from the crew itself, a hand on the shoulder, a patient ear, a shared joke at dawn, quirky tidbit. Some pirates kept dream journals, crude logbooks, where they recorded nightmares and visions. These were passed around, read aloud, and occasionally burned at the end of a voyage to free the spirits and clear the mind for calmer seas. You see a young pirate weeping quietly, his head in his hands. No one mocks him. Instead, an old mate sits nearby, whittling quietly, keeping company without words. In a world that demands bravado, this silent understanding is a rare and precious kindness. Historians still debate what became of those whose minds truly broke. Some were put ashore in distant ports. Others simply disappeared. A few were woven into legend, ghostly warnings for the next generation of sailors. As the ship rocks gently and dawn approaches, you sense the crew settling. The laughter, the stories, the quiet care of friends. They're not cures, but they're enough to keep the darkness at bay, at least for another night. On a pirate ship, even the deepest wounds are faced together. Sometimes that makes all the difference. The sky is grey at dawn, and you find yourself wandering amid the clatter of unloading crates and the shouts of a landing party preparing to go ashore. The scent of new land, green and humid, floats over the rail. This is the moment when pirates desperate for a cure, or just curious, slip off their ship in search of new remedies, lost knowledge, and the magic, or medicine, of distant shores. Tonight, you join the crew as they borrow, barter, and sometimes outright steal healing secrets from the peoples and lands they encounter. You follow the doctor and a small group into the dense jungle beyond the beach. Here the air buzzes with insects and possibility.
Mainstream historical fact, pirates were infamous for mixing practical curiosity with outright piracy, and they often learned new cures from indigenous people, African healers, runaway slaves, or local apothecaries in colonial outposts.
When desperate, pirates paid well or threatened worse for secrets about which leaves to chew for fever, what roots stopped bleeding, or how to treat wounds no European remedy could touch. A local healer shows the pirates how to mash papaya seeds into a bitter paste to fight worms, and how the bark of a certain tree can bring down a fever when brewed into a tea. The doctor listens, scribbling crude notes on a scrap of parchment.
Quirky tidbit. Pirates sometimes swapped cures of their own rum-soaked herbs, garlic and salt pastes, or the legendary pirate poultice in exchange for new recipes. Some even hired healers for a share of the loot, or protection from rival crews. Back on the ship, the new medicines are met with suspicion and jokes. The crew debates whether a witch's brew from the last island really cured the captain's cough, or just scared it away. Some pirates swear by the new concoctions, while others complain the cure is worse than the illness. One tries a purple root for toothache and claims his tooth jumped out of his mouth in terror. Historians still argue about the cultural exchange of medicine among pirates, indigenous peoples, and colonists. Was it true respect, mutual necessity, or just another form of piracy? Did pirates really understand what they were learning, or just add another layer to their patchwork of cures? The truth is tangled, like jungle vines, but one thing is certain. Few crews were more open to new ideas than those with nothing left to lose. You spot a young pirate carrying a gourd filled with strange-smelling ointment, his pride obvious as he explains it's for snakebite, fever, and if you're unlucky, both at once. The doctor experiments with new brews, mixing old world and new world knowledge. Sometimes the results are miraculous, sometimes just messy, but the spirit of invention and desperation
drives the whole crew. Quirky tidbit. A favourite pirate superstition held that if you slept with a jungle remedy under your pillow, you'd dream the cure for whatever ailed you. If it didn't work, at least you'd wake up smelling better than the rest of the crew. Historians still debate how many of these borrowed remedies actually worked, and how many became dangerous myths. Yet, in a world without certainty, hope and curiosity become their own kind of cure. Pirates didn't just take gold and silver, they gathered stories, recipes, and bits of survival wisdom from every shore. As night falls again, and the ship rocks at anchor, you realize the medicine chest is a living map of the pirate's journey. Each strange potion and odd-smelling herb a reminder of lives crossed, knowledge shared, and the desperate, creative search for healing in a world that offered no guarantees. You find yourself surrounded by a cloud of tobacco smoke and the clink of charms as pirates gather on deck for the evening. The day's wounds are patched, but tonight's real business is superstition. Lucky talismans, whispered curses, and cures that owe more to faith than to any apothecary's handbook. On a pirate ship, belief is medicine, and the line between healer and wizard blurs in the twilight. A wiry pirate with beads in his beard hands out scraps of bone, shells, and knotted cords. Each charm comes with a story. One to keep fever away, another to stop bleeding, a third to call fair winds and keep the rats out of your hammock. Mainstream historical fact. Pirates, like sailors everywhere, were deeply superstitious. They carried rabbit's feet, wore shark teeth, painted symbols on their gear, and muttered half-remembered prayers before every voyage and every surgery. Medicine and magic mingled on these rolling decks, offering hope when knowledge failed. The doctor is no stranger to these rituals. Before he stitches a wound, he ties a coloured thread around his wrist for luck. Before mixing an herbal brew, he spits over his shoulder to ward off bad spirits. The crew gathers for the nightly lighting of the good luck lantern, a battered lamp set on the prow, believed to keep ghosts from climbing aboard. Quirky tidbit. Some pirates refused to let their wounds be treated on certain days. Fridays were unlucky, while a full moon was thought to speed healing, or at the very least make the bandages look prettier in the moonlight. You watch a nervous pirate rub a coin engraved with strange runes before swallowing a mouthful of bitter medicine. His mate teases, if the coin doesn't cure you, at least you'll be richer in the next life. Laughter ripples through the group, a vital ingredient in every remedy. The doctor tells tales of cursed ships and bewitched wounds that wouldn't heal until the proper charm was found. Tales met with skepticism, mockery, and just beneath the surface, a sliver of real fear. Historians still argue whether these beliefs helped or hindered pirate medicine. Did lucky charms and superstitious rituals soothe minds and boost recovery, or did they keep the crew from seeking real cures? Some claim pirates were ahead of their time in understanding the power of belief and community. Others say too much trust in magic led to more harm than help.
Quirky tidbit. Pirates sometimes held healing contests, seeing whose charm or potion would fix a wound fastest. The winner got an extra ration of rum or, if unlucky, a good-natured dunk in the sea for washing away bad luck. No matter the outcome, the contest bonded the crew and kept hope alive.
You notice how each pirate guards their lucky items with a seriousness that borders on reverence. Some have necklaces strung with animal teeth or sea glass. Others sew secret pouches into their clothing, filled with dried herbs, or a snip of hair from a loved one left behind.
The rituals become a nightly dance, charms checked, prayers whispered, bad luck swept overboard. Historians still debate just how much power these beliefs held. Did they really shape outcomes or just give pirates a sense of control in a world where storms, wounds, and fate ruled? On this ship you see faith and medicine working together, offering comfort, courage, and just enough magic to carry the wounded through another restless night. As the lanterns flicker and the waves slap gently at the hull, you find yourself holding a tiny shell pressed into your palm by a grinning pirate. For luck, he says. You can't help but believe, just for a moment, that it might work. The night wears on, and the deck grows quiet but for the shuffle of cards and the soft clink of coins. You lean against the rail, watching a crowd gather around a fast-talking stranger who claims to be a healer, a magician, and the only man on the 7 seas who can cure anything from a broken heart to a missing limb. Tonight, you meet the pirates' favourite and least trusted characters, the quacks, charlatans, and travelling miracle men who preyed on hope and fear with equal skill. The doctor squints at the newcomer, a wiry man with a patched coat, a sack full of potions, and a gift for storytelling. He sets out his wares, bottles of elixir of life, snake oil, and powders that sparkle suspiciously in the lamplight. Pirates crowd around, eager for a cure that promises to put them back in the fight, or let them out of swabbing duty. Mainstream historical fact.
Pirates, like all sailors, were targets for quacks and con artists. The uncertainty of sea life and the scarcity of real medicine meant almost any remedy, however dubious, could eager buyers. Some ships even hired travelling healers for entertainment as much as actual care. The quack draws a crowd by swallowing a spoonful of his own potion and surviving so far. He boasts of healing broken bones with a whisper and curing fever with a single touch. One sip, and you'll dance at your own funeral, he cries. Jokes fly. Ain't much use if you're already dead, is it? The pirates laugh, but still a few tossed coins for a taste. Quirky tidbit, some of these miracle men travelled with trained monkeys or parrots, which performed tricks to distract the crowd while secret ingredients were slipped into their potions, a show as much as a sales pitch. The doctor shakes his head and mutters that no magic potion can replace a clean bandage and a steady hand. Still, he's curious enough to trade a few stories with the stranger, swapping tales of miracle cures and impossible recoveries, some true, most greatly exaggerated. Historians still argue whether pirates were more skeptical or more gullible than their navy counterparts. Did their experience with rough, real-world injuries make them harder to fool, or did desperation open the door to every wandering healer with a bottle of coloured water and a fast tongue? A sickly deckhand, desperate for relief, tries the elixir and claims loudly that his cough is gone. The others eye him with suspicion. He just wants an extra ration of rum, someone mutters, and the laughter rolls on. Still, the seed of hope is planted, and before long, the quack's bottles are empty, and his purse is full. Quirky tidbit. On some ships, a resident healer was kept around for luck, stories, or just to distract the wounded. Even the most skeptical pirate enjoyed the performance. A little magic, a little hope, and the feeling that maybe, just maybe, the impossible cure was out there somewhere. Historians still debate the real impact of these quacks. Did their potions actually harm, or were they harmless placebos? Some say a good story was the best medicine, lifting spirits and soothing nerves even if nothing else worked. Others warn that faith in charlatans sometimes delayed real treatment, with deadly consequences. As the quack packs up, you see the doctor slip away to tend his real patients. He may grumble about snake oil and fools, but you catch a hint of a smile. At least they're laughing, he says, in a world where pain and danger are constant companions. Even the wildest lie has its uses, so long as you know when to laugh, when to hope, and when to stick with the tried and true cure of rum and rest.
The lanterns dim, and the ship rocks gently. Above deck, coins jingle, stories flow, and for tonight at least, a belief in miracles, and the odd lucky swig of snake oil keeps fear at bay. Dawn creeps up slow and gold, and you find yourself at the galley table. As the pirates squabble over breakfast, sea biscuits, a mug of something murky, and as always, a side helping of wild stories.
This morning, the talk turns to fairness. Who gets what share? whose wounds are worse, and whether the doctor plays favourites. But here, among this unlikely brotherhood, you discover something unique to the pirate world, the rough and tumble democracy that governed medicine, care, and even compensation after injury. On a pirate ship, equality under the knife is more than just a slogan. It's the pirate code stitched together by survival and a crooked sense of justice. You listen as the quartermaster explains the common chest, a literal box stuffed with coins, jewellery and trinkets looted from every unlucky merchant ship. Mainstream historical fact: pirate crews drafted written articles or codes before every voyage. These rules often guaranteed wounded men extra shares of treasure, or smart money as compensation for lost limbs, eyes or fingers. If you were hurt in battle, the crew paid out no arguments, no captain's favour, just what the code decreed. This was rare at sea, where navies and merchants usually tossed the wounded overboard or docked their wages for lost labour. The doctor is part judge, part nurse, and part bureaucrat. He keeps the wound book, marking who's been patched, who's owed extra, and who can skip chores until they're mended. Pirates line up to show their wounds: a missing toe, a splintered arm, a scar across the cheek. Each injury gets a nod, a record, and if the crew agrees, a share of silver from the chest. Quirky tidbit: some pirates tried to game the system, exaggerating old wounds or inventing new ones. Look, Doc, this tooth been loose since Havana. The doctor rolls his eyes, but the code is clear. Fair is fair. You overhear the new recruit grumble about his split lip, hoping for a little coin. The quartermaster laughs. If we paid out for every bruise, the chest would be empty by noon. But real injuries, lost fingers, eyes or legs, earn respect, not pity. The wounded are honoured, their scars a badge of loyalty to the crew. Historians still argue whether pirates were truly fair, or just better at keeping everyone happy enough not to mutiny. Did these rules come from democracy, or just necessity? Some say the payout for wounds made pirates fight harder, knowing their risks were shared. Others insist the system kept order in a world with little else to lean on. Quirky tidbit: pirates sometimes held a jury of wounds, a circle of shipmates deciding if an injury was real, who deserved what, and how best to dole out the treasure. The debates could be raucous, full of jokes and wild tales. But the system worked, the crew got its say, and justice was handed out with rum and a handshake. You notice that for all the chaos, pirate medicine and care are deeply communal. No one is truly alone. Wounds are examined, stories are shared, and the code is kept alive by memory and mutual respect. Even the most battered pirate knows that, on this ship, his pain won't be ignored or dismissed. Historians still puzzle over the long-term effects of this system. Did it create true loyalty, or just a clever facade? Whatever the answer, you see the results. Pirates sticking together, tending each other's wounds, and sharing every risk and every reward under the banner of their own peculiar brand of justice. As the day brightens, the pirates toast their fallen mates, count out silver, and promise to keep the code as long as the sea carries their ship. On this floating world, equality under the knife isn't just a rule, it's the heart of pirate brotherhood. A cloudless noon turns the deck to shimmering gold as the lookout shouts from above, "Land ho!" The pirates scramble to the rail, eyes straining for a patch of green on the endless blue. Word spreads that the ship is running low on food and fresh water, and there's a nervous ripple. Everyone remembers stories of castaways and shipwrecks, when the doctor's kit held little more than hope and improvisation. You follow the crew as they prepare for the worst. Shipwrecked, stranded, and forced to practice the rawest kind of survival medicine on deserted islands. The ship creaks as it slips into a hidden cove, anchor dropping with a splash.
Pirates tumble ashore with supplies, axes, and whatever remedies they can carry.
Mainstream historical fact: pirates and sailors sometimes found themselves stranded on uninhabited islands, either after a wreck or by choice. If a mutiny or plague forced them to abandon ship, their only medicine was what they could scavenge: coconuts for food and water, salt for wounds, and whatever plants or animals they dared to try. The Doctor leads a party into the jungle, eyes peeled for anything useful: wild ginger for nausea, green coconuts for hydration, seaweed for wrapping wounds, and palm leaves for makeshift slings. A wounded pirate hobbles along, laughing that if the fever don't kill me, the mosquitoes will. The crew quickly discovers that even basic survival, clean water, shelter, a patch of shade, is medicine when you've got nothing else. Quirky tidbit: pirate lore is full of wild stories about castaways who healed with turtle, shell bandages, made splints from driftwood, and even stitched wounds with the thorn of a cactus. Some invented new cures on the spot, testing berries and roots on the bravest or most foolish volunteer. It's not poison if you don't die becomes a running joke and a desperate reality. Historians still argue whether pirates were better or worse at surviving shipwrecks than other sailors. Some say their knack for improvisation and lack of discipline made them more adaptable. Others believe the absence of real supplies doomed many to fever and starvation. What's clear is that necessity turned every pirate into a field medic, and every plant or animal became a potential remedy. You pitch in as the Doctor boils seawater for salt, digs for fresh water with a coconut shell, and oversees a wild feast of roasted crabs, roots, and whatever fruit is safe to eat. The crew makes shelters from branches, lines up in the surf for saltwater baths, and assigns watch duty for both sharks and sick pirates. Night brings new challenges, treating sunburns with mashed aloe, calming fevers with cool sand, and huddling together to stave off chills and loneliness. Quirky tidbit: some pirates kept island diaries, scraps of parchment where they logged what remedies worked and what didn't. These records, sometimes found years later by rescuers, offer a strange mix of desperate hope and grim humour. Day 7. Jones tried eating the red berries. Jones is now very quiet. Avoid red berries. You see the wounded cared for by everyone. Pirates taking turns with water, stories, and rough lullabies.
When a fever breaks or a wound begins to heal, there's celebration. Someone invents a dance, another pens a bawdy song, and the Doctor is crowned king of the island for a day. The hardships are real, but so is the strange joy that comes from surviving, together on nothing but grit and luck.
Historians still puzzle over how many pirates ever made it home from these desert islands. Some faded into legend, others were rescued by passing ships, and a few carved out new lives, sometimes becoming the first settlers or the last ghosts of a lost crew. As dawn breaks on another day of survival, you watch the pirates adapt, invent, and laugh through pain and fear. On a stranded pirate ship, medicine is whatever works, and hope is the strongest cure of all. A silver moon glides over calm waters, and the ship's deck fills with the low murmur of voices, the clatter of dice, and the steady hum of another wild tale in the making. You slip among the crew as they gather in knots to swap stories, some true, some stretched, all tinged with the magic of survival. Tonight, the focus is on legends, tall tales, and the most miraculous pirate recoveries, stories that turn scars into trophies, and remind everyone that hope can sometimes outshine even the darkest diagnosis. A weathered pirate leans forward, rolling up his sleeve to display a jagged scar. "Took a Spanish musket ball right here," he boasts. "Doctor said I'd be feeding the fish by sundown, but I patched it with seaweed and rum. Lived to steal another day." The crowd laughs, some shaking their heads in disbelief, others clutching their own wounds, each a silent badge of grit. Mainstream historical fact: sailors and pirates lived by their stories and tales of miraculous healing, whether real or wildly exaggerated, were currency on any ship. Surviving wounds that should have killed meant instant fame and a permanent place at the heart of any crew. You listen to tales of men rescued from the brink by magic salves, of fevers broken with a midnight dance on deck, and of pirates who swore they were saved by a mermaid's kiss or a parrot's blessing. Quirky tidbit, some pirate crews even held story nights where the wildest recovery tales were acted out, complete with props, sound effects, and a jury of rowdy mates to judge whose scar was most dramatic. The winner earned an extra ration, or if the story was deemed too outlandish, a dunk in the sea to cool the fever of his imagination. You see the doctor rolling his eyes at the wildest stories, but joining in with one of his own. I once saw a man bitten by a shark patched up with candle wax, and 2 weeks later he was dancing jigs for the governor's daughter in Nassau. The line between fact and fiction blurs. What matters is the laughter, the camaraderie, and the proof, however improbable, that pirates never give up without a fight. Historians still argue whether these tall tales helped or hindered real healing. Some say the stories gave hope, boosting morale, and staving off despair. Others claim they encouraged reckless risk-taking or a dangerous faith in luck over reason. Yet on a pirate ship, legend and reality are woven together with every sunrise, every new scar, every wild escape. Quirky tidbit. Pirates sometimes gave nicknames based on their most improbable recoveries. Lucky Jack, Never Drown Nell, or Twice Bitten Tom. Ninkai Tinnei Anged Wakuiti Ho, Vafifo, Pion Gusum Gumi and Le Kamba. Doan Koto, Bonje Song Sot, Abketi de Rasau. As the night deepens, you see wounded pirates showing off their scars, trading stories with rivals, and inventing new versions of old adventures. The youngest listen with wide eyes, the oldest with knowing grins. Hope is contagious. By morning, everyone feels a little tougher, a little luckier, and maybe even a little bit immortal. Historians still puzzle over which, if any, of these stories are true. Some are clearly fantasy, some based on misendorsed medicine or good timing, and a few, just a precious few, might be miracles, born from the wild mix of human stubbornness, sea-born luck, and the magic of belief. You drift to sleep to the sound of laughter and the rhythm of the ship. Scars and stories twined together beneath the stars. A floating tapestry of wounds, wisdom, and the irrepressible pirate, will to survive. The last night at sea is quiet, the ship gliding over gentle swells, lanterns casting golden halos on the weathered planks. You linger at the rail, letting the breeze tangle your hair, surrounded by the ghosts of 1,000 stories and the soft echoes of laughter, pain, and survival. Here at Journey's End, you see the lasting legacy of pirate medicine, not just in scars and stories, but in the strange, haunted echoes that drift through every corner of this floating world. You pass a hammock where a pirate traces the lines of an old wound with his thumb, whispering a prayer of thanks, or maybe apology. Mainstream historical fact, even after the fever broke and the wounds healed, pirate medicine left marks that never truly faded. Some pirates bore their injuries with pride, others with resignation, all with the unspoken knowledge that each scar was a page in a story written on the high seas. There's talk tonight of ghost ships, vessels said to drift forever, crewed by spirits of the lost, nursing wounds that never heal. Some claim they've glimpsed pale faces in the fog, or heard the hollow groans of the forever injured. Quirky tidbit. Pirates believed that those who died at sea sometimes returned as sea wraiths, lingering near old ships, drawn to the pain and triumph etched into every beam and board. Crew members swapped tales of ships that changed course to avoid cursed waters, or tossed their old bandages overboard to appease the spirits. You watch the doctor pack away his battered kit for the last time, lingering over the bone saw and the stained thread, his tools heavy with memory. He traces the names carved into the chest, some gone, some still sailing, all part of the strange fraternity born in blood and salt, Historians still argue how much of pirate medicine was skill, how much luck, and how much the power of stories, belief, and camaraderie. Some say the medicine mattered most, others claim the rituals and legends were the true healing. Around you, pirates cradle their wounds, count their blessings, and remember those who didn't make it. The night grows even quieter. Some stare at the stars and recall shipmates gone to the deep. Others simply sleep, rocked by the gentle lull of the waves. Quirky tidbit: when a pirate with many scars died, his shipmates sometimes painted a crude skull and crossbones on the spot where he bunked, honouring his toughness and luck, a small monument to a survivor in a world where most didn't survive long. Historians still debate whether pirates left a real mark on the history of medicine, or just a legacy of wild tales. Yet, every time a modern sailor ties a bandage or shares a joke with a friend in pain, a bit of that old pirate spirit lingers on, defiant, hopeful, and unbroken. As dawn breaks, you sense the world shifting. The lanterns dim, the ship slows, and the pirates drift into their hammocks, scars and all, ready for another day or another journey. You realize that, in the end, every medicine, every legend, every rough cure, and wild story was just another way to make peace with the dangers of the sea. On a pirate ship, healing was never certain, but it was always shared. Let the night on the high seas soften now, every rough story melting into the hush of gentle waves and the steady creak of the ship. Imagine yourself tucked beneath a rough woolen blanket, the air cool with salt and memory. Breathe slow and deep, letting each inhale wash away the ache of old wounds, and each exhale bring you closer to calm. The ship drifts on, guided by the moon and by the secret, unspoken wisdom of all those who sailed before. You feel the safety of the crew nearby, their soft snores, the occasional chuckle, the knowledge that every soul on this ship has survived, suffered, and healed, in their own way. The night presses close and kind, the lanterns dimming one by one, until only starlight remains. Let every scar become lighter, every old pain fade, soothed by the sea's eternal rhythm. Outside, the wind sings a lullaby through the rigging, and you sense the world's troubles growing smaller with every passing mile. The ship is a cradle now, rocking you gently, carrying you away from the sharp edges of the past. The medicine of the pirates, their wild laughter, wild hope, and even wilder cures, lingers in the warm dark, weaving around you like a blessing. As your eyes grow heavy, trust in the simple comfort of company, the healing power of rest, and the promise of a new dawn. Whatever storms you've weathered, whatever tales your own scars might tell, know that you are not alone, carried, as every pirate once was, by courage, camaraderie, and the endless lull of the sea.